So this is kind of a bit of an emergency episode for me, so forgive me if the editing is a little bit crude, but The Economist just dropped an interview with Elon Musk, where the editor-in-chief of The Economist sat down with Elon to talk about a wide range of topics, from his politics to his views on AI. And these type of interviews are always quite interesting to me. Firstly, because Elon is a very influential and powerful man who has some very strong views on a lot of different topics, right? But also because I think Elon actually is surprisingly capable of being quite reflective and honest in an interview of like a similar nature. He has exhibited this in the past. So I thought it would be quite interesting to see kind of what he has to say this time around, especially after the SpaceX IPO that made him, like for a brief moment in time, the world's first trillionaire and by miles the richest person on the entire planet, right? And I also think that because these type of interviews often involve a lot of like very kind of catchphrase stuff, right? A lot of like strong views, strong opinions that are summarized into short sentences or short headlines, but nobody really kind of takes the time to break down the logical argument behind it or what is actually being said. So I always wanted to do a video of a similar nature to see if there's something that people might find interesting. So if you do, please do like, share, and subscribe, and also leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. If you are a fan of Elon Musk, chances are you probably didn't click into this video. However, if you did, thank you for being here, but I also hope that by kind of engaging in this debate kind of head on the logical level, this helps to shed a bit of light on some of the lies or misconceptions that do go into these arguments or go into these kind of discussions. I think in these videos, the editor-in-chief or the interviewer in this case didn't really kind of push him very hard on certain things on a logical level and didn't really corner him on that. And this is not me trying to sit here and say that she did a terrible job. Like, I have no right to judge that. And I also definitely understand that kind of being in the media these days itself is quite a challenging task. You can't really kind of pin someone down and make them speechless, because then they would just go on to social media or whatever channels they have, especially in the case of Elon, and spread a bunch of lies or say a bunch of things that probably weren't true, and they can just kind of discredit you or just leave the interview. And in that case, you wouldn't even be able to get this person to sit down with you and have a conversation to begin with. It also deters kind of other people in the future from sitting down with you and having a conversation if they think you might kind of corner them on certain issues. But I'm not a professional journalist, so I am allowed to sit here, actually kind of break down some of the arguments that were made and analyze the logical flaws that go into it. And without further ado, let's hear what Elon Musk had to say about these tough topics.
You support not just the populist right, but the far right, in fact, very fringe parties in some countries.
No, I support the normal people.
Okay.
What do you call the far right? Falsely.
You think as the normal person? Okay.
Yes. Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal.
So right off the bat, what he says should already be setting off alarm bells. Firstly, why does Elon have to reject the label of being far right so hard if he believes that this is just normal people politics, right? The term itself has certain connotations with it, but it doesn't carry an inherent moral judgment. The reason why he rejects it is because he does recognize that kind of being on the far right of the spectrum is something that is morally flawed, at least in his subconscious or in his opinion. So he wants to disassociate with that. But if what he says is true, and that the politics are so normal, he doesn't have to disassociate with those elements and concepts behind it. Secondly, what he said was basically, this is normal politics because if you take it back 10 years or a couple of decades, this is something that would have been widely accepted. Well, okay, if we go back a couple of decades or we go back 10 years, same-sex marriage was illegal. If we take it back a little bit further, slavery was still a thing. And if we take it back even further, then we would still be sat here debating whether gravity exists. What he says is basically that people cannot improve, that humans cannot evolve, and that humans cannot somehow know more about the world, know more about the truth, and change their minds on what is right and wrong. So yes, if we live in Elon's world, and let's say we accept what he said to be true, even though I might disagree with that, let's say this is the normal politics of 10 years ago, let's say this is the normal politics of decades ago, then that is a problem, because if we live in this world, humanity will never improve.
It's just normal people. It's just normal people, and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders, that we should have safe cities, that we should have sensible spending.
Here, you have a classic example of a strawman argument. A strawman argument is when the person making the argument intentionally sets up a false analogy or a misconception of the opponent's argument and tries to convolute it with his own original point in order to try and make it seem like that they did actually make a logical argument. In this case, Elon is trying to oversimplify his politics to associate with these grandstanding principles and falsely claiming that anyone who disagrees with him is then by extension also disagreeing with these principles. What Elon is saying is that we on the right are standing for these principles, while on the left that is not the case, but that is just factually inaccurate. If you talk to anyone from wherever on the political spectrum, people can agree that you should have secure borders, you should have safe cities, and you should have responsible spending. The issue is with how you achieve that and whether or not the far right's ideas, concepts, or policies of achieving that can actually get there. In terms of safe borders, secure borders, and safe borders, everybody agrees with that. It doesn't mean that like anyone or any terrorist should be able to walk into a different country and do whatever they want. The issue is that when you have secure borders, whether or not you could still allow the people who should be allowed to come into your country, where you should still be allowed or still have ways of letting legal immigrants come in, actually be able to do that. And in a lot of cases, what they're convoluting is the concept of having secure borders and blocking out anyone from different cultures or backgrounds whatsoever. Secondly, in terms of having safe cities, what people would debate is how we can get there. And the solution, to me at least, is not by abusing political violence or abusing the police force or the military. The solution should be to have a society or have an economic system where people can afford to live in a dignified way and to live a normal life where people can actually get by so that they do not have to resort to violence. And yes, in cases where there are crimes being committed, sure, right? Police them, arrest them, but that doesn't mean targeting racial minorities and that doesn't mean targeting immigrants. Lastly, in terms of sensible spending, definitely, everybody agrees with that. It's how you achieve that. And you achieve that not by cutting spending on the poor and not by cutting spending on the people who actually need it, but by cutting tax breaks to rich people and cutting tax breaks to billionaires like Elon Musk himself.
Close to 250 million followers on X.
Yeah, because
You say things like,
popular guy.
quote, civil war in Britain is inevitable. Just a question
on the current
of when.
trend, yes.
I live there. I'm there the whole time. That is
Yeah,
nonsense.
you live a cloistered existence.
No, I don't, actually. And the numbers also disprove what you say.
What numbers?
All the numbers about crime. London is a much safer city than any city in the United States.
Quick few points on this part. Firstly, let's be honest, lots of people follow Elon on Twitter, not because he's that popular or well-liked, it's because he's the richest person in the world and because Twitter is his company. The algorithm literally forces you to see his shit. Secondly, I think to Elon's credit here, it is more likely than not that the editor-in-chief of The Economist is going to have a better than average life of the average Londoner, right? She's not going to see the ugliest sides of the city as frequent as people who actually have to live there and go through all of that from the day to day. My personal experience of London has at times been quite rough. But at the same time, that isn't justification for why the UK will be on the brink of civil war. Conversely, it's also true that just because London is safer than a lot of US cities, it doesn't necessarily mean that the UK cannot be on the brink of civil war. But in the next clip I'll show you, Elon then properly lays out his argument for why he says the UK is on the brink of civil war. And that has nothing to do with London's crime rate or how clean the streets are.
Are you anti-Muslim?
I'm against.
Quick PR tip on that one. If anyone asks you if you're specifically against a certain group of people based on their religion or the color of their skin, the only correct answer is just no. Okay, it's no. It's not.
Having if people are coming to a country with antithetical views, I am against that. I'm against that. You know, I'm against. I'm against rape and murder. I'm against the imposition of rules and laws that are contrary to what we've come to accept in the West.
Firstly, again, another strawman argument. Just because you're pro-immigration or you're pro-Muslim doesn't mean you're pro-rape and murder. Everyone is against rape and murder. Secondly, if you actually listen to what Elon is saying and breaking down his argument, it's truly chilling what is actually coming out of his mouth. He says that he's against anyone who's antithetical to the accepted Western values or beliefs. And that, in other words, means you're not allowed to push back. You're not allowed a differing opinion. And you're not allowed to believe that things can get better, that humanity and society can actually evolve and improve from our current point or state in time, because the condition for being accepted into Elon's version or vision of a Western civil society is to completely agree with everything that is currently in place. Question to anyone who argues that, or question to Elon: how will humans improve then? What he said there just now is actually highlighting the true underlying principle of Elon Musk's political beliefs. He always claims that he's the bastion of free speech, that he bought Twitter or X in order to protect free speech and keep it as an open town square for all on the internet, right? But it is only open, or you're only accepted, to the extent that you completely agree with him. The term antithetical, as he uses, it makes it sound grander or makes it sound like a moral point. But no, it just means that you're disagreeing with the current set of opinions or values. And if you're not allowing anyone to disagree with your opinions or values, that means you're not allowing people freedom of speech at all. That is not how freedom of speech works, and that is also not how humans as a whole, as a society, improve, and why we're stuck with problems like this one.
Even if there was a stop button, we probably shouldn't press it because the most likely outcome is incredible abundance for all.
Here, the context is they then moved on to talk about Elon's views on AI and the future of AI and humanity. I cut out a bit of the context because he does dilly-dally quite a bit, but basically, Elon and the interviewer does actually agree that there is a 10 to 20% chance that AI just kills us all.
I'll be back.
Elon then admits that he basically has no full control over the issue and that he can't actually stop it. And if you weren't paying attention to the news this week, one of OpenAI's models went rogue and hacked another tech company. Yippee! But let us entertain Elon's wildest fantasies and live in his world for a bit, right? He argues that we basically shouldn't stop AI despite the risk of it resulting in the extinction of humanity, because the most likely outcome is that it will result in a world where there's abundance for all. Firstly, he doesn't elaborate or provide the mechanisms as to how AI will lead to that. He can argue that it is probably most likely, but we don't see the natural logical link between the current state of AI, the fact that all the people who run AI are losing control of it, and how that will actually lead to a world where there is abundance. Secondly, even if there is a world of abundance resources waiting for us at the end of the rainbow, it doesn't mean that everyone has equal access to those resources. Many people will argue, I myself included, that we already currently live in a world where there is abundance of resources, where everyone on this planet can actually lead a reasonably healthy and normal life. But that is clearly not the case that is going on right now because of a whole wide range of political and economic factors that stop us as humanity from working together and doing so. So even if we go into a future where AI takes control, but we have this abundance of resources, it doesn't mean that we all actually get access to these resources. There's no reason to believe that somehow that social dynamic will have magically changed just because AI is now in the picture. And thirdly, just having access to resources isn't what humanity is about. It isn't what we live our lives for. I would argue that most people on this planet don't survive or live every day, don't wake up every morning just for the sake of having another meal or buying their next toy or just enjoying resources in this world. We want to live a life that is fruitful and meaningful with other human beings. And that is something that is not factored into at all from Elon's worldview.
I think it's quite difficult for someone in the government who doesn't have a deep technical understanding and isn't driving the frontier of AI to know whether something should be released or not. However, the competitors, I think, can, if given sort of a week or two to review a new model, can highlight issues and have an incentive to keep all the competitors have an incentive to keep the others honest.
So what you just heard is Elon's central thesis and argument of this interview, and his great big plan for the future, that should be a committee of AI leaders that drives our society's way into an AI robotics-led future. Now, firstly, I do agree with his point that lawmakers right now are not well-equipped or well-informed enough to actually drive regulation on AI. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't involve lawmakers in a democratic process at all. It just means we need better lawmakers who are better informed on this matter. Secondly, the argument he's just made is basically the logical equivalent of saying we wouldn't need food safety regulations if we just let McDonald's and Burger King keep an eye out on each other. There is still someone who determines what is right, what is wrong, what is okay, and what is not okay. And that is not something that a committee of so-called businessmen and experts will be able to do, or even are in the position to do. Lastly, if AI is truly about this great future for humanity and abundance for all, as Elon himself suggests, then why shouldn't the people and the all in that equation be involved in the process at all? That's all for this video. If you do want to hear more and then check out more context, do go check out the original video on the Economist YouTube channel. This video was quite different to ones I've done before, but again, it was something that I've always wanted to do because I do feel like these conversations are very important, and credit to Elon where it's due. He is willing to sit down and make his points or make his thoughts on it clear, despite I might disagree with a lot of the things he said or the logical backing behind the statements that he's making. I hope that this video actually helps you or other people engage with this topic in a logical manner and understand what actually is going on, or the thinking that is going on behind what he's saying. Because again, these conversations are very, very important to the future of humanity. If you did enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and do leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. You can disagree with me on certain matters as well, but I think what is important is that logic should be the common ground and the common language for which we debate the merits of these arguments. And when there are flaws, it needs to be pointed out. Thank you.